Last but not least, our final speaker is Aeliraz Shor of Riskified. Aeliraz has years of experience in talent acquisition and sourcing, having worked at Israel Tech Challenge, Applied Materials, and Apple. She came to Riskified as a human relations recruiter and is now at Riskified as a senior analyst. Aeliraz will guide you on how to use social media to improve your job search in industry and perhaps also in academia. אני שמחה להזמין לבמה את אלירז שור מחברת ריסקיפייד. לאלירז ניסיון רבת שנים בגיוס עובדים בחברות שונות בארץ ובחו"ל. אלירז תספר לכם איך לחפש עבודה בסיוע מדיה חברתית. אלירז שור, בבקשה.
I'm Aeliraz. Shiv actually gave a good introduction, so I'll do mine fast. I work for Riskified. It's an Israeli high-tech company. We do a platform for e-commerce, mostly helps with preventing fraud. We've recently IPO'd. We're now being traded at the stock exchange. Before that, as Sherry mentioned, I worked at Apple. I started at Riskified as a recruiter, and in the past year or so, I'm an analyst doing people analytics, tools, and processes. It's a long title. It means it's a combination of human resources processes, information systems, and data analytics. So all of these together. Before that, I was working at Apple and Applied Materials. I trained as a career advisor and worked at ITC, which helps bring people from around the world and help them into high tech. I have a bachelor's of Hebrew literature from the Hebrew University and a master's of Hebrew literature from Ben Gurion University, and I contemplated an academic career, but I've given that up many years ago. So this is going to be a shorter version of a longer talk that I gave when I decided what to cut away. Speaking to academics, I decided I don't need to talk to you about networking in conferences and face-to-face, because this is probably something that you've been doing for a long time. We're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk specifically about LinkedIn. We're not going to talk about ResearchGate. I know it exists. I know a little bit about it. I don't know if it really calls for a lot of personal branding and networking, which is what I'm going to talk about in the other social media, but if it does, then feel free to use that. This is just a nice one about networking in general. I think a lot of people could sympathize. So the main thing is, this could be also the title for this, but become a subject matter expert or at least an enthusiast. So definitely when I'm talking to academics, most of you, if not all of you, are probably subject matter experts in some field. And those of you who've already decided to move into a different field or to switch into the industry, it's called, it's a huge thing, it's the industry, might need to make a change. So even if you're a subject matter expert in one field, you could be an enthusiast of another field. And I'm later going to show some really practical examples of actually posts that some of them I would call expert posts and some of them would be enthusiast posts, and an expert could also post as an enthusiast and vice versa. So sharing knowledge, sharing opinions, sharing experiences that relate to the field in which you're searching for a role, or in your field, or anything that could position you or could let people know what you're about. Social media, as opposed to your to articles or papers, is where you could go broader. You don't have to focus on your field. You could go broader, and if you go, the more personal you go, the more it gives you the legitimacy to really talk about anything you're passionate about or that you want to move towards. I don't know if it's easy, but it's definitely possible to get traction and to get attention if you're passionate about something, if you're excited about something. And again, it doesn't have to be your field right now. It could be a field that you want to get into. It's something that I've done when moving from working in NGOs and education into recruiting in high tech, through one role that kind of did both, and then just going in and looking for a job in a whole new field. Joining Facebook groups, joining LinkedIn groups. Some fields have them more active than others. Specifically in HR, the field that I went into, there was one huge group where I started by just reading and just being silent and reading what people are about, what questions they're asking. And slowly I started asking questions and posting. And eventually I gained some traction. In some fields, it's acceptable to accept friends on Facebook that are not from your field. LinkedIn, I will talk about in a little bit more depth in a second. There, it's definitely fine to accept people that you absolutely don't know. But on my Facebook, for example, I have a lot of HR people that I've never met in person, but there's kind of a community thing going around. My example, it's fine that it's hidden there. When I was a recruiter, I led a project of implementing a new applicant tracking system, a system that we're using for recruiting new employees. I was the one in human resources, not afraid of systems. That's how I also got to my current role. And I was gaining a lot of knowledge in that specific system. So people in groups asked, is anyone using the system? Does anyone recommend it? People started tagging me. I started answering questions. I became sort of a subject matter expert because I was one of the first ones who led it here. Eventually, I opened another Facebook group for Greenhouse. That's the name of the system, Greenhouse users in Israel. We have, I think, over 300 members now. The company saw that we started a group, and they actually reached out and came and did a conference in Israel for us. So something that I just felt, I had a lot of questions. I posted because I had questions. People started asking me, and this conversation, it all happened in Facebook in that case. And it really led to things in reality. I also led sessions in other companies who asked me to train. So a lot of things happened just because I was curious about something, because I shared my knowledge in a platform that's not necessarily professional. So that's a little bit of my story on this. Social media, a little bit more in general. Facebook and Twitter are kind of mixed media in terms of the professional and the personal. So we'll talk about LinkedIn, which is just professional, later. Facebook and Twitter could be both or either. If you have any of them, if you spend some time in the US, you're probably more of a Twitter person. Instagram also used to be more of the personal, definitely professional if you're into, if your profession is workshops of any sort, or if you're in the more artistic worlds. But now a lot of others are posting on Instagram, advertising on Instagram. So that's another one that's on the rise. I haven't included TikTok, but that too. And then there are groups pretty much anywhere. It could be WhatsApp, Facebook, anywhere where people network and people post jobs sometimes. It could be neighborhood groups. It could be, there are a lot of women's groups by location, by industry. A lot of these places are good places to network and to search for jobs if you are searching for jobs. They all have rules, so if you're posting a job or posting that you're looking, sometimes it's on a specific day of the week, sometimes it's only in one thread, so read the rules and be a good community member, but these are also good places to look. What's next? That's that. Hashtags. Hashtags and searching for content. So Twitter is actually very good, much better than the others. If you're following a company or a person, it gives you suggestions. Personally, I find them useful. Following without engagement and without commenting is totally fine. It helps you in understanding who to read, whose blog to look up, where to go. Of course, engagement helps and also helps people know you. And then hashtags on LinkedIn and Twitter, if you can follow a subject, not necessarily a person or a company, that's also highly recommended, everyone with their fields. Let's talk a little bit about posting. I think most, if not all, of the examples are on LinkedIn, but this works for Facebook as well, possibly Instagram. So here I'm going to talk again in the expert or enthusiast. This is Aviram, he's the head of sales at Riskified. He posts here about, he was on a podcast, so just sharing the fact that he was. Another one, Raviv, also works with me. He was part of a panel, so posted about a panel. Also see the mixed languages. If you are in Israel, you could probably do both. In this one, the ad is in English, the post is in Hebrew. In others, it was the other way around. If you are only posting in one language, that's fine and keep on doing that. If you're posting on both, just see what happens and what gets traction. Also know who you're posting for. So if you're in academia and you're looking for academia, probably academics would read in English. If you're in Israel, it's fine. Try it in Hebrew. LinkedIn mostly runs in English, and when we'll talk about building a profile, it's only in English, but posting could be in whatever is convenient and whatever you think people would read, pretty much. Gili, this is an expert post, also works with us. I like this one because, at least at that time, you wouldn't necessarily call her an expert. She was a developer with, I think, maybe 3 years of experience at that time, but she was working hard with our team to present at a conference. And so this is definitely an expert post from someone who, maybe not all of her posts would have been an expert. Alad is definitely an expert. He's our VP of data science. He's also, he has a lot of speaking engagements, and he writes for our blog a lot, so posting your blog posts in every possible social media, also great. Any other article or publication as well. It doesn't necessarily... Closer to the microphone? Oh, okay, I thought it was. So, yeah, any other publication, not necessarily a blog. If you published anywhere, even if it's not on one, post about it. The fact that you were posted somewhere else is great. This one is an expert and an enthusiast. I actually don't know the person personally. He's on my LinkedIn feed. He's a chief marketing officer at a company. But in this one, he writes a very personal post about how I didn't start as a CMO. He writes about his personal journey with ADHD and his childhood. I think very personal, very engaging. And you don't have to be a CMO to write something about your journey, any kind of journey. And you see a lot of engagement and traction. Boris is one of my favorite LinkedIn personalities. He's also a friend. He works at Riskified. Writes a lot on our blog. But this one is really an easy one. It's an enthusiast post. He ordered a book. He finally got it. He was waiting for it for a long time. Just a photo of the book. By the way, LinkedIn pushes photos that you took on your own a lot more than if you post a photo from Google search or anything like that. Fun fact. And hashtags. But I think our talent sourcer, who is even much better than me on LinkedIn, said between 5 and 7 or 5 and 9. So don't be afraid of hashtags, but not more than 7. So just posting about something you read, something you bought. There's another one of these. This is an app that helps you make charts and drawings. And then an enthusiast post, and here again, Danya is actually an expert in her field. She's a product manager at Facebook, now Meta, but she also loves posting memes and jokes. And this is something really anyone could do. There was a talent sourcer I know from another company who during COVID, when their recruitment went down a lot and they hardly had any openings and she didn't have a lot of work stuff to post, she would just post memes just to keep traction, to keep engagement on her page. I should probably find some examples because she was great. Fairuz, well, it's a bit of a cheat because she's on our marketing team, so social media is part of her job. But in this one, also, she's sharing a personal story about COVID, about how last year Riskified gave us some days off, recharge days. So again, she's sharing experiences and emotions about what's going on. Again, something that anyone could do about anything, as long as you're willing to put something of yourself over there. So this is about posting and using LinkedIn on the social media side of it. And again, this could go to pretty much any social media. Let's go into LinkedIn itself. I was going to do a poll of who has or who doesn't have a LinkedIn profile, but I don't think this is really a large enough crowd to do that. So why is a LinkedIn profile important? Why you should have it and how to set it up right. I'll start from the end and say that as a recruiter and as a talent sourcer, LinkedIn is probably the most powerful tool that we have as recruiters. We're posting jobs there for people to apply. We're also searching for people there by keywords, by all sorts of, and there are some powerful search tools behind LinkedIn, and there's a special recruiter suite in LinkedIn that most companies use these days. So you want to set up your profile in a way that would help recruiters find you, other than the posting and the activity. Even if you're not active and you don't want to post ever, set up your profile in a way that you'll be found. And as a recruiter, when I'm looking for someone, I don't even necessarily look at what they post. If they posted, it's nice, but I need to know what's on their profile. First reason is LinkedIn is usually the first result. When somebody Googles your name, if you have a Googleable enough name and you're not called Noam Cohen, even if you are, it would send you to LinkedIn and say, are you looking for this one? It would give you, if your name is Noam Cohen, for example, it would give you a list of all Noam Cohens. And then me, as someone who's searching, could find whether or not it's you. So it's the first, sometimes second or third, depending on whatever power is behind Google search. And it's a business card and a resume in one place. This is what you see if you are not in LinkedIn, if you're not signed in, and you clicked on that Google search, on that result, you would still see my profile, you would still see my about, my experience, etc., as long as I set it up to be public, and I highly recommend setting your profile to public. You could choose what to show and what not to show. I recommend having your picture public so they know you're the right Noam Cohen. In my case, it's less of a problem. The second thing is connections. And even if, again, you're not into the social media side of it, you're not into the whole, mingling of a new social media, LinkedIn, as opposed to Facebook, Twitter, etc., is built in a way you can't just search for anyone or anything on LinkedIn. You can only see people who are first, second, or third connections. Anyone who's out of your circles, you won't be able to see. So you want to have as many first connections as you can, so that you'll have as many third connections as you can, and you'll be exposed to more people, jobs, etc. That's the way the algorithm works. Fun fact, recruiters usually approve almost anyone or everyone. So connecting to a few of them would automatically make your circles a lot larger. There used to be something called LION, stands for LinkedIn Open Network, I think. So if you see that next to someone's name, that's someone who always approves everyone, and their network is huge. You'll see if someone has over 500 connections, it would just say 500 plus, so you don't actually know how many they have. So as I said, business card and resume in one place. Also sort of a live CRM kind of way to keep in touch with anyone you kind of came across. So just add anyone you went to school with, you worked with at some point, and then you could always know where they're at now. One day you could reach out. There's an etiquette at the end on like how to reach out to people if you haven't met them at all, if you haven't seen them in a while. But it's good to know if someone is at a place where you're looking for something. Add your professional experience, add your schools, your places of work. When you do, in some of them, LinkedIn would suggest. So use the suggestions, because then it would link to that place. So if you put a name of a company or a school that I don't know, I click on it, it takes me to their page. And I can see who's there. I can also see if I have any connections to that place. So I'll ask someone else who works there or went there in the same years. And again, this is a lot of time used as a way to sort of validate a CV. As a recruiter, a lot of hiring managers that I worked with, I had one manager that hiring for his team, he would hardly look at a CV. He would just search the person, look at their LinkedIn, and go through the experience there. So make sure it generally matches or that it's very accurate in terms of years. It would ask you to add months and years. You don't have to use the months. I actually usually recommend not using them because then it counts more vaguely. Tagline is the thing under your name. It auto-populates with your most recent title, but you could also edit it. So you could put whatever you want. Don't use looking for my next challenge, what used to be a thing a few years ago. It's not anymore. There are other places to mark that you're looking or you're open for work. Put something that's indicative of where you are or what you're looking for. Same goes for summary, or I see that we're at time. We have a clock there. So I'm going to skip around a little bit. It's totally fine to use your CV as the base for it. It's okay to just have your title. If you have more to put there, great. The language paradox, and this goes more for the English speakers or people who spend a lot of time in English-speaking countries. If you're looking for a role in Israel, the person who reads it, probably English is not their first language. So definitely use good English, but try and make your sentences relatively short, not complicated, not very academic, to make it easier for the reader. It's a paradox because you're expected to write in English, but also it's not the first language of most people who read it. The last thing is skills and endorsements. It's this section at the end of your LinkedIn profile. It's not really clear why it's there, why you should put it. People just click on it to say you know it. It's a little bit weird, but here, as a recruiter, when I search, and you can see, I don't know if you can see from where you're sitting, but it's highlighted. If I search for the word designer, it would highlight anywhere on your profile that it says that. The top one has Java and like programming languages. So if you have it in your endorsements, you'll show up in my search. So even though it seems like this weird thing, take the time, put in the skills that you want to be found by. I'm going to finish with the etiquette, just a few words on, it's totally fine to add people that you don't personally know on LinkedIn. It's even recommended. When you do reach out, briefly introduce yourself. If you've met them a while ago, say we've met at this and that conference or not, or just say, we've never met, we're connected on LinkedIn, I want your help in this and that. If you know them in any other capacity, I recommend approaching them in another way, because not everyone's on LinkedIn. Especially if they're physicists, by the way. The average time of response could be like 4 years. There was this one about where to look for. That's where the fonts got weird. I think that's me. Good luck.